Going once, going twice, sold! You're listening to The Property Pod.
All right, guys, welcome back to The Property Pod, your fun and engaging way into the real estate market. I've changed it up. Pat is shocked. Welcome to the new world of The Property Pod.
Whoa! I like it.
I was lying in bed last night and I was like, I'm going to change it. You told me, you said it doesn't have to be the same. I said, I'm going to change it.
Oh, he's just living on the edge.
I am.
John. He's just teetering right on that fine
He
line
does
of
not take
danger.
up much room at all.
No way.
Next week he's in with a leather jacket. He's a completely different man.
Speaking of new things and jumping into the world with both feet, we're back in the video game.
Yeah, I'm excited by that.
It's one of those things where last year we kind of, based on necessity, we had to jump into kind of doing it over Zoom. You were in your little office. We were in here, or were we in the same space? I can't remember.
We were
you're
just
back
like
in.
squeezed into each corner of the room.
Yeah, we measured out the space. It was 1.5. We had this covered, yeah. But we actually got really good results from that. Do you remember old mate that loved the beanie?
Oh, yeah, the guy from Melbourne, the plan guy.
Yeah, so it was kind of one of those things where it was like it was going well. We kind of life got in the way. We kind of had kind of 414 property code, the changeover, and everything kind of happened. And it was kind of one of those things like, why did we stop that? And
Because
so,
it just didn't ever. It was too much work to get set up before.
Yeah.
we were really lazy. Is the best way to describe
Yeah.
it.
Because it was coming across 3 different webcams on the 3 different computers as well. So
so we've rigged up a new system, and we've kind of like bugger it. We're just going to throw money at the wall and see what happens. And it's not my money, so I'm not too concerned. And
well, that's about right.
Jeez, I hope it works.
so anyone out there listening, jump onto some form and just watch 2 minutes of the video just to say, yeah, I watched it. You guys looked
It'll
good.
make me feel better if we get some views on the video for the money we just spent.
No, look, what we want to do is we said at the start of the year, we want to grow the podcast. We want to kind of really make this a premium product that we're proud of it. We won the award last year for the REIT.
We're in the national awards this year for it, so we really want to just amp up this year.
And why not? Like we said when your brother was on the show, it's way more fun than it should be.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Let's take this fun thing and push it to the limit.
But it always is an exciting element to bring in something new where you're challenging yourself each time and getting better at editing, knowing what the right stuff to buy. And also, too, if we're on video, we've got to lift our game just a little bit more as well. We can't be as sloppy,
we can't just talk about fur coats. We've got to wear them.
Yeah, exactly.
Next week. Look out.
All right, so jumping into some real estate stuff this week, which is what we're here to talk about. There's been some really interesting off-market stuff going on. So kind of at the moment, there's kind of a shortage of stock out there for buyers. There's getting lots and lots of inquiry. And it seems like off-market selling is something that is just booming at the moment.
Yeah, crazy busy at the moment. I think nearly every agency in Hobart's experiencing off-market sales at the moment. Now, obviously, we all know what off-market means, but maybe there are people out there. John, do you want to sort of just expand a little bit on what that actually means?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so to go back to the beginning of a process, for us to be able to get the authority to sell a property, we need a agency agreement written up. So what that'll often be is that, we might get authority to sell from the owner 2 to 3 weeks prior to the property actually going to market.
And this is that time when Aaron's doing all his magical stuff, making the property look good for realestate.com and Domain, those websites.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that time, it's just as you would in any sales, matching the owner and the buyer prior to it going to the greater market. So all it is really is that you're someone purchasing a property, making an introduction prior to it actually getting advertised.
Yes, so it's the off-market side of things. Is you haven't tested the market yet with the people out there. It's kind of like I've got buyers in lieu, or like we've discussed the database before of kind of getting known by a real estate agent so that when something does come up, it pricks the agent's ears and being like, oh, actually, I had someone that tried to buy this place in Claremont, or someone tried to buy this place in Moona and they missed out on it, but I know that they were after 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. This is the perfect place for them.
I just have someone that would love this property. Absolutely.
And it's no surprise that it's become so popular. Like even Homely last week announced their beta testing for their new sneak peek listings, which is effectively the same thing. Agent goes to the property, lists the property. They take a couple of photos on their phone, and 5 minutes later they can have it on Homely as what they class an up-and-coming listing.
Yes.
So that means that people can sort of know that that's coming through early. It goes out to Homely's databases, and it's sort of a soft launch while you do the better photos and the better get the write-up and everything organised.
It's kind of like this sneak peek idea of, this is coming. I know there's agents around Hobart that do it, and they're kind of like, hey, have a sneak peek of this. Like if you can kind of get a qualified buyer coming in straight away and being like, oh, well, we don't actually need to push this to market. You could save money on your marketing kind of costs by being like, well, I've actually got a buyer here right now that will give you, boom, exactly this amount of money. Are you interested in doing this?
Well, one of the reasons why it's exciting, especially in interstate where the internet websites they don't have a fixed price right across Australia. They have a fixed price based on the average price of the suburbs. So in some of the suburbs, to get it up on the internet, it's going to cost you $3,000 to $4,000 just to be on the major portals. Coupled that with a strong auction campaign, and they're dropping $15,000 to $20,000 on advertising exclusively before they've even looked at selling fees from the agent services as well. So in a lot of these markets where the advertising expenses is extreme, the idea that you could actually eliminate that cost is actually could be a really high benefit. It may not seem as relevant in Hobart where the fees aren't as expensive, but it's still extremely relevant. And also too, if there are many clients that just don't want people to know that they're selling, it could be through their very private people, or there might be
circumstances in their life that just doesn't allow for them to sort of put it out there in the public space.
That's exactly right. So a lot of this idea where you can just match to, because doesn't matter what the process always ends the same, which is there's a buyer and a seller exchanging the property. So if there's a way for that to happen behind the scenes, you could say, that's a real big benefit to a lot of clients.
I guess some people would worry though, am I going to get the best possible price by selling off market? Obviously, when you promote a property online, you're fully exposing it to 100% of the marketplace. Is that magical buyer out there? But I think what we've found in the past is that the pre-qualified buyers, the ones that are prepared to buy off market, they've normally missed out on 2 or 3 properties already. So they're already paying the correct price, in my opinion. Does that make sense, John?
Yeah, absolutely. I was when I knew we were talking about this morning, I was sort of mulling it over in my mind how to best to phrase it. And when there's two parts, like those that will be hunting for off-market opportunities in the hope of searching for grabbing a bargain, and often that can be a case. I met a gentleman once many years ago in North Hobart where someone had knocked on his door that offered him what he thought was a great price, unconditional. So he took it, but he hadn't really thought about his next move. And then he was out of his house 30 days later, and he still needed to buy a new house, but the market was moving. So within the time frame that he'd sold his house under what probably the market would have been prepared to pay, he couldn't even buy into his own suburb of which he sold.
Yeah, wow.
So that was a case where unfortunately he didn't get the right information before moving. Now that's not always the case. Where the other element is exactly like you described, Pat, is some people are just sick of missing out. And it's like, I don't care what I have to pay for this property. I'm just sick of going to 30 different open homes and finding out it's under offer constantly. Can you bring me an opportunity that I can just secure without having all this added work and stress?
And if I have to pay 10% more for the privilege, I'll do it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, because they just want to be done.
And that's where then your question as the owner has to consider as well. I use that idea that as an agent's perspective, it's the process, not the promise of a price that we can deliver. So we can.
He didn't say it in his accent.
Yeah. Well, I guess it wasn't it's the process, not the promise of a price.
There it is. There isn't a problem. The price cannot
cure. Well, and the thing is that what I mean by that is, well, if you want to ensure that you've got the best result, well, you have to go to the market because you don't know who is going to be out there on that week. But if the owner's more than comfortable with that price, they're like, no, this is everything that we ever wanted, right here, right now. Well, then that's fine. The only thing is, when those opportunities present themselves, we'll, like our process, for example, once that agreement's signed, we'll reach out to the clients and the buyers that we're working with and say, hey, this property's coming up. What would you like to do? We'll often present opportunities prior to going to market, and the owner can ask, what do we think? We might suggest this is a great opportunity, or we might still suggest that let's go to market.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking as you're discussing that, like I know being the guy on the outside, I'll often be hearing the talk in the sales pit of the crew, and they'll be like, the first offer was the best offer. Like the
amount of times that's happened.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of one of those interesting things where, if you were just to call it like the first phase of marketing where I'm not marketing it to the masses. I'm marketing it to a smaller tip of the funnel.
But you're marketing to qualified buyers, ones that are ready to purchase now.
Yeah.
So they should be willing to be ready to negotiate and pay a fair market value for the home, if not a little bit more.
Yeah. So I guess like it's that kind of just maybe changing the idea of, it's like the same with print media. Like it used to be, your house isn't for sale until it's in the real estate guide in the newspaper.
I think they still try to convince you that.
Yeah.
Well,
not that I believe it.
There are people that, it'll be my great uncle will be, I saw 414 in the newspaper. Oh, did you? We don't normally put them in there, but okay, yep.
Good to know.
Yeah, good to know. But I guess it's just changing the goalpost and being, the idea of selling. It doesn't mean you've got to hit realestate.com now at the market at the moment. Does it just mean, you've got to be in the know with an agent?
Well, I've found that the last couple of showings that I've done, there's a couple of tips that I've been sort of suggesting to first home buyers or any buyer actually, and that is to reach out to half a dozen agents in and around the area that you want to buy in for this exact reason. I've been chatting to all my purchasers about this off-market phase and saying to them that there are a lot of properties that aren't going to market, and the ones that are going to market have normally been exposed to a small group of people already. So you're already going in behind the eight ball because others have seen it. They've started to get themselves organised and they're ready to move on a property before you've even found out the property exists. Yeah. So that's one thing I've been sort of saying to people. The other thing I've been sort of outlining to people as well is that there's a lot of sort of economists out there suggesting that the value of houses is going to go up over the next 12 months in Tasmania. So what might seem expensive today theoretically is going to be cheap in 12 months' time. So I've been sort of suggesting to people, look, if it's only another couple of $1,000s to secure it, and at the time you think it's too dear, you won't think it in 12 months' time.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
2,005, 10, whatever it may be today, won't be that big a deal in 12 months' time.
If that means securing that property.
Yeah, and a lot of people I've been talking to them later down the track, and they've all been agreeing, you're right, we need to be doing this to be able to get a property today. And yeah, so it's pretty interesting conversations with purchasers at the moment because they're all realising it and they're all starting to reach out to different agents and get on databases and get information sent to them so they can be prepared and ready to go.
Yeah, and just getting that, like you said, that leg in. I mean, remember we've had those conversations with the different buyers agents, and remember their whole job at this point is they just foster relationships with real estate agents.
Yeah, because they want these off-market opportunities.
Exactly right. And what they're doing is it will say, look, if you come to me, there's almost 90% sure that I'm going to have someone who's qualified, ready to go, and is going to be prepared to make a great offer. So it's that from these because in Australia it's always still the case that you've got the 9 times out of 10 the agent will be representing the owner, so they're acting in the owner's best interests. So the owner might just say, look, I need a quick result, please. So the best option in that instance will to make an introduction to someone like a buyer's agent who's probably got a quick qualified element if you really don't know anybody. And so they'll get early access.
And that's exactly right. Like people get so worked up on the sale price of the property, but sometimes that's not the most important thing for a vendor.
No, exactly.
Like a vendor might take less for a property if it means that they can settle 30 days earlier because the conditions or the clauses are better in the contract.
So is this something like if it's a cash buyer or if it's a
subject to a house sale? Yeah, exactly.
To all of these things.
Yeah, like take this scenario, for instance. Owner has to sell his house to be able to buy his dream place. He's made the offer on the dream place, but it's subject to the sale of his home.
Yep.
And then the agent's put in what we call a shortened period clause, meaning that agent can sell his dream house to whoever they like if a better buyer comes along sooner. All of a sudden, the house that he has to sell, he might not be so much driven by price, but more driven about what gets me my dream house quicker.
Yeah, for sure.
And if it means selling for $5,000 less because I can get a cash contract and don't have to stress about it, he'll consider it.
Yeah.
So, too many people get focused on price is the only important part when it comes to making a deal come together, but there's so much more to it.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds like there's kind of a something to extrapolate on another episode there on.
Well, we had a property sell in Dysart, and the conditions were almost identical in the end. So then the owner was asking about the buyer's story. And what the one that got it in the end was, because ironically enough, they were both couples, both around about the same age. So there wasn't any unique identifying characteristics in that sense.
Yep.
However, one of them said that they'll look after Annie the goat, and he said they can have it. So the little the Chateau de Prix, I think as it was, and it had this goat with a busted udder for so many years. But because they were prepared to look after the goat, he said, "Okay, they can look after it."
We had a rental once that came with a sheep, and you had to feed it toast with Vegemite every morning for breakfast. That was part of the deal.
These are Rosehaven storylines.
It literally was part of the rental deal that if you take on this house, the sheep just lives here. It's lived here forever. And it comes to the back door for Vegemite and toast every morning.
I love that.
I don't know like if sheep should eat Vegemite on toast.
But that one did.
That one did, and it lives forever, so it wasn't doing it any harm.
If I could guarantee a lifestyle that allowed that, I would absolutely take that property.
At our uni house, we would always talk about getting a sheep, or it sounds really naughty now. We never did it, but we were driving from Hobart to Launceston. We said, what if we just grabbed one
and just threw it in the back,
just put it in the backyard, and then we would never have to mow the lawns, and we could like maybe train it into where the cricket pitch is meant to be. You know, we just like eat here. Like
it's like he's got a perfect line and patterns. He almost formed like a crop circle as well of just the sheep eating in perfect synchronicity.
It was something we always talked about, and I'm glad we never did. But
the easiest way to do that would have been to fence off the cricket pitch because, sheep, they always like to get the grass that they can't get.
Very true. I like that. Yeah. Actually, that's very clever, Pat. I'll take that.
Well, I think one of the challenges at the moment, and where we've had the research and domain and all that kind of stuff, and even from last podcast where there was in Hobart, there's 50% more buyers than there had been, with like 30% less properties becoming available. So it goes to show that the stress that's been placed on purchases is real. Like it's just not easy. And as we know, all the competition are from other locals. It's not that inadvertent people coming from interstate. It's locals that are most passionate about this state.
You'll love this, Pat, and Luke. If you're still listening along, you'll love this too.
Surely we've lost him by now.
We're sitting in the office the other day, and Chris, your dad, is strumming along his emails. He goes, 90% of buyers in Hobart or in Tassie are locals, it says. And John's just leaned back and goes, yeah, if you listen to the podcast, Dad, you would have known that.
It's so true.
That's a big middle finger to Dad.
Yeah, it was. But it was bang on. Look, we were on this 2 weeks ago.
You're behind the times, mate. So, Luke, just for you, mate, no, your dad still hasn't listened.
Well, I think, but where then... for how do people take advantage of these opportunities? That when I was thinking back, it really is about those relationships. So it's in the same sense that if we're trying to secure new business for properties to sell, sometimes the buyers have to find a way of making themselves top of mind with different agents when they're looking to buy. And that really is about somehow forming a relationship, whether it be an open for inspection or one-on-one, letting them know and identify that you are exceptionally serious and that you are ready to rock and roll, and following up with those different agents that you build a connection with.
I had one recently who wanted to buy out of Bridgewater, and he rang me religiously every 7 to 10 days.
Really?
And he'd always start the conversation exactly the same. And after about 3 phone calls, it's like, oh, I know who you are.
There you go.
But it helps so much because we are talking to so many people on a regular basis. Like just having someone reach back out to you does help you remember them.
Yes.
Like a lot of people ring once and that's it. And then, you have to understand we do our best to ring back every single person, but there is so many people we're talking to. It's easy for somebody to fall through the cracks.
Absolutely.
So, do reach out 2 or 3 times and just remind someone that you exist and that you haven't bought something and that you're still looking, because it definitely helps you go from sort of in the middle of the pack to back up the top from a sort of first of mind type thing when we are.
Well, that's the other, the other part of it is, it puts you into that forefront of the mind, being like, oh man, Trevor is really keen.
Like, absolutely.
Like if anything comes up, I'm going to hit Trevor up.
Yeah.
And then Trevor will be like, no, mate, I'm not interested in that. Cool. Oh, well, sweet. That gives me a little bit more information on what Trevor's after. I'll continue to travel down the road of Trevor's house.
And this guy always started his conversations with, hi, Patrick, I don't know if you remember me, but I was, and I'm like, yep, we talked less than a week ago. I remember exactly who you are. And every phone call started like, even after he'd signed the contract with me to buy the house and he was now officially one of my purchasers, he would still start his conversations like that. I don't know if you remember, but I bought property. I'm like, yeah, mate.
I got you covered. I've actually got your name saved in my phone now.
Well, good on him. I mean, we had one of our old staff members because the only reason she called Dad every week going, have you made a decision yet? Have you made a decision yet? Have you made a decision yet? And he just went, stuff it, and he created a role in the business because he was sick of hearing from her.
Nice.
Yeah, it was just, just that persistence. And once you can find, and that's again that element of relationship, and it becomes comical as well. So he could probably just say the same line, ends up just being a laugh. And with that, you're going to be excited to let him know about it. Yeah. And where the idea of volume of numbers, I mean, where we had, what last few properties we sold was Lutana, Claremont, and so even just on those two properties alone, there was 80 new people that we made introductions to. That's like, keep me on top of mind. It's like, if I'd love to be able to. I mean, we're here to serve for the industry. It's just a case of volume that we just cannot treat everybody on an equal footing all the time. And even when they were looking at when we had the guys at the property agents, they said they can only have a small portfolio because of the leverage of work that they have to do when they're acting on behalf of the buyers.
This is the buyer's agents you're referring to?
Sorry, yes, the buyer's agents is massive.
Yes.
But the old Trevor, if he's kind of every week, he's like, oh, yeah, that bloke. Oh, yeah, that bloke.
So but the good thing about what you're saying is like you've got the one in Lutana, you've got another one coming up in Lutana really soon.
Exactly.
If you've got that information of I've had 80 people interested in this, you'll have that stored kind of
ready to go,
like tagged in a database of being like, these people are keen on Lutana.
And that's exactly right. It's hard though when out of those 80 people, there's one person there that has also said to you, I'll also look at Rokeby. And then remembering that one person was prepared to look at your new listing that's come up over here.
Yep.
That's where it gets a little bit tricky sometimes to remember every person's finer details.
Yep.
But I think the key takeaway from our waffling is that just pester agents over and over and over.
Well, and find someone who's a good hard worker that is, that you can build a relationship with.
Anybody that's listened to the Property Pod knows that John loves a waffle and John loves a phone call. Yeah. So
and that's there are, when we talk about getting on the contact lists, it's just worth doing because for the way our business works is that there'll be get emails pre-market on the day it's listed and they're notified once it's unconditional. So at least then you can, and who cares if you get an extra, for the time you're looking for properties, if you're getting another 10 emails a week in your inbox, who cares? Just go click, 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 delete. However, there's going to, at least then, it'll often be the case, many companies do offer a similar service that ours do, where it's going to be at least listed on the day or notified prior to. So you're at least going to be able to make the phone call that first day, hopefully book in a private inspection, get in before 100.
The red hot tip at the moment is don't wait for the newspaper guide to come out. No. It's probably too late by then.
And it's almost too late to wait for realestate.com and domain these days, where once upon a time that wouldn't be the case.
Yes.
So those couple little websites we touched on briefly before, Property Whispers and what the Homely thing's coming out.
Yeah, Homely is going to be a while away. They're only beta testing it now. We're lucky that we are one of the beta testers for it. However, it's not going to be massively used in Tasmania, but it will be coming soon.
Well, that Property Whispers one, the way that works is that you register your details about what you're after, say 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, X price, X areas, and then what agents or private owners can do is register that property through Property Whispers with only the minute amount of detail prior to coming to market effectively, and then that's going to do the property alert like I was talking about before. So
I don't think we actually covered. I think this was off air. We were talking about Property Whispers, but it's kind of where the jumping off point of the show was. So a story in realestatebusiness.com.au had, I think it's Leanne Fletcher is one of the co-founders of Property Whispers. And yes, so basically the stat that blew us away was 217% increase in the number of properties being sold off market just in the last 3 months in through their system. So she won an individual of our real estate business women in real estate award last year. So it'd actually be really cool to reach out to Leanne and try and maybe get her on the show.
Absolutely.
We keep saying we're going to reach out to these people. Let's actually do it. We've got video now so they can see our lovely faces. We're not scary. But it's a really interesting kind of, this Property Whispers is actually really cool. It makes me think of like kind of Tinder for property.
It really is. You
find the right match and like, are you interested in this one?
Absolutely.
So there's definitely scope for that. It's actually been a really fun episode being back. I feel like the cameras brought the best out of Pat. Like normally it's oh no, it's the 2 coffees he had
two
before.
coffees plus 3.
I'm on to my third and it's not even 10 o'clock. I'm like buzzing.
So we know from now on that we just need to get Pat coffeeed up before we record.
And then you listen back and I'm talking at 5,000 speed. What the hell's he saying?
So just pull it back to what, .75 in this pace and you'll be fine.
We all good.
Brilliant.
Awesome, guys. It's been a really good episode. Hopefully this video stuff works out. If you're only hearing this and there's no video out there in any sense, because I buggered it up, not the other boys. Just let it be known.
Well, that's good.
We'll remember this.
Awesome, guys. That's the Property Pod.
Thanks, guys.
See ya. Bye. You have been listening to the Property Pod, recorded and edited by 414 Media House in conjunction with 414 Property Code.
This podcast is general information only, and the thoughts and views expressed is the opinion of our panel, and listeners should always seek then use their own investigation into any topic we discuss to ensure they fully understand their own situation.
It does not constitute and should not be relied on as purchasing, selling, financial or investment advice or recommendations, express or implied, and it should not be used as an invitation to take up any agent or investment services. No investment decision or activity should be undertaken on the basis of this information without first seeking qualified and professional advice.